We will go through libations, and then we will continue.
I go. Amen. Amen. I go. Amen. My name is Nana Kwame Tokra Asunahini from the Asuna Abarade Shrine, right here in North Philadelphia, 27th and Cecil B. Moore. I'll be pouring libations from the Akan tradition, and I will give basically a prayer, and we'll pour using a flavored gin. And I will ask the elders to taste the gin or to pour it out, but my assistant here will assist me and then basically take the drink around. So just in the matter of time, we'll just keep it really short with the elders and the drummers, and I will proceed. Thank you. Ago Yah Sase, call the Great Mother Spirit, Yah. Almighty God, I pour the house of the Abusums, Nana Tigare, Nana Sujabi, Nana Asi. I pour for all the house of the Abusums. Nana Oberibia. I pour really to bless this house of peace and the power from the history and the power of this place that we are gathered here today. May the minds be uplifted, opened, and may we gather the wisdom of our elders. May we also lift our hearts. We all are going through the struggles of the Philadelphia and really nationally, our struggle of African people. And in the spirit of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, one God, one aim, one destiny. Now you can go around with the drink, pass it to an elder who will be right here, and they choose their food. Again, when the drink comes to you, if you're not really going to drink, you lift up to the bottle to stop the pouring so you can just pour a little bit out. But if you do want to take the drink, you just let it come. You fill the bottle. Again, I bring greetings from the Okopokini, Nana Karantama, who is involved with the Sister of Elders meeting, African Sisterhood, which prevented her from coming. She is my priestess. And on the Akan Traditional Council, I'm a chief on her traditional council. But I was asked to do it, so I'm representing her as her chief. Clear our pathways, and as we leave, will basically bless those who come in. Food and the house is peaceful. Yes. It is done.
Permission from the elders to speak and continue.
You may speak.
Once again, greetings and welcome. My name is Ramasus Aman Mayatra. This is the Communiversity Lecture Series, and this is the beginning of the change of your life. The Council of the Elders is formed. This is part one, once again. We plan to have the Queen Mothers in a short period. And then we plan to have a joint council. This particular program is set forth for you to open and exercise your mind to ask the questions that you need to ask. This is the launching of our life from this day forward. There are programs that you will need to look at and look into. We will give you an email address. Please contact it and ask for the information. The information of the window of opportunity, which is education, economics, and life-changing, and the Black Farmers Distribution Group, which is the Food Cooperation Group. This is our agricultural survival of our nation. This is the economic building block of what we need to do as a people to move from the constant consumer to the producer. And at this point, I turn it over to the Council of Elders. We have Elder Dr. Eddie Robinson. We have Elder Redman Battle. We have Elder Calvin Robinson. We have Elder Dr. Leonard Jeffries. I gotta watch my mouth because the elders will kill me. But we got a young guy up there.
It's called Junior Elder.
Junior Elder, yes sir. That's Brother James Small.
A first question may be, being in a society where we appear to be completely powerless and there is no regard for elders in forming this council of elders, how will we be able to reach our young and get them to understand and cooperate with that which they have no knowledge of? Brother Elders, who wishes to answer that question?
I think it's the first thing that we will have to do is clean out all the poisons that we have swallowed within this Western civilization and starting with correcting history of our greatness in order to replace the sickness or the poison of this society. That's where I would begin, with our mind and our thoughts of changing.
Let me repeat the question. Brother who wishes to answer, Being in a society where we appear to be completely powerless and there is no regard held for elders by the young, informing this council of elders, how will we be able to reach our young and get them to understand and cooperate with that which they have no knowledge of?
I would say that in order to get to that point, to be able to reach our youth and our people as a whole, that we must look around us and analyze how did we get into this situation in the first place, to the extent that we are. And I hate to say this, but it's true, and that is that we older ones today may have dropped the ball and may not have realized that when the movies and then later on the DVDs with all the sexual overtones, the giving in to the judges who okay gangster rap, and in so doing, because the movies and DVDs have such a drawing power that they couldn't hear us anymore, but we stood still, and it was not enough of us to even start, although there was C. Dolores Tucker who did a Herculean job to try to stop it, but she was outdone by money. And as a result of that, our children today have gone wild and crazy. And I'm afraid to say that some of us as older ones, not you here of course, but others, have thought it was all right to get crazy and to do the same thing, that let your children see you do the thing that you do, that you should not do in front of them.
First of all, let me say that I'm grateful to be here among the elders. A few months ago, January, I had my 70th birthday. A few years ago, 1991, I didn't know how many birthdays I would be having after I became the source of a major attack on my person as well as my humanity. I'm certainly thankful that the Council of Elders has been pulled together and this process has started. I want to acknowledge how grateful I am. I'm sure my wife, Dr. Ross and Jeffries, Nana, video, we're glad that you've been invited to Philadelphia to join you. We have been in the forefront of trying to Africanize our people, and that's the key. We as African scholars have a tradition, and leaders, and elders, of analyzing, describing, analyzing. And that's not the end. We've got to go further. We've got to prescribe. We've got to come up with a prescription of what to do. We can and we have described our condition. And in many instances, it is dire. Because the key has been the destruction of the unity of the black family. The key of the enemy has been divide and conquer. Some of us recognize this as the process involving that person Miles. People always talk about the Minster Farrakhan mentioned in the Millionaire March, the Willie Lynch process. See, I kind of suppressed Willie Lynch because white folks have been involved in the destruction of black people long before there was a Willie Lynch process. Willie Lynch may have just been one aspect of it. As we look at these things, we have to raise the question of systems understanding, systems analysis, systems consciousness. As we raise these issues such as the disconnect between the generations, we have to understand that that's part of the process of the destruction of the black family. That's part of the process of the alienation of black humanity from each other. And so we need to look at the crises and the problems, we need to analyze them, and then we need to prescribe what to do about it. I know there's a problem in the generation, and my prescription is clear and simple: Africanness. Africanize your world, and you'll be on the road to resolving this. Find the unity among yourselves that you need to step forth and take your destiny in your hand.
Brother Junior? Brother Junior Elder?
Junior Elder, I think, is one who's crossed 60. He hasn't reached 70 yet, so at 62, I'm a junior. I want to read something from a book by a white boy, William Lloyd Garrison. He's done an excellent job. I just want to read this and listen to it, and I want to make some comments.
That's William Lloyd Katz, a white scholar, Jewish background, but he has been an advocate of the history of African people.
He says, in the late 1861, thousands of slaves, at least the enslaved Africans, were freed when Union forces captured Port Royal, South Carolina, on the state. President Lincoln directed Edward L. Pierce to handle their problems. After ex-slaves were provided with food and clothing, Pierce established a school. He reported this conversation with one class. Listen to it. This is Pierce. Children, what are you going to do when you grow up? Go to work, sir. On what? Cotton and corn, sir. What are you going to do with the corn? Eat it. What are you going to do with the cotton? Sell it. What are you going to do with the money you get from it? One boy answered in advance of the rest. Put it in my pocket, sir. That won't do, says Pierce. What's better than that? Someone answered, buy clothes, sir. What else will you buy? Shoes, sir. What else are you going to do with your money? There was some hesitation at this point, and the question was put, what are you going to do on Sundays? Going to meeting or going to church? What are you going to do there? Going to sing? What else? Head a parson. Who's going to pay him, Pierce says. One boy said, government pays him. But the rest answered, we pays him. Pierce, well, when you grow up, you'll probably get married as other people do, and you'll have your little children. Now, what will you do with them? There was a tither at this question, but the general response came, send them to school, sir. Well, Pierce asked, who will pay the teacher? We pays them, sir. Now, that's 1865. Most of those same answers will be given today. And most of the same direction that Pierce was giving you, the teacher would give today. Now, the young boys that put his money in his pocket, we can construe that in a lot of ways. Put it in our bank, invest it with us, I'm keeping my money. But the teacher's instruction, Mr. Pierce, the white man says, no, you're going to buy clothes. Who was selling clothes? They was the white folks selling clothes. You're going to buy shoes. White folks selling clothes and shoes. And then he took it right from there to, what are you going to do on Sunday? Socialization. We're going to church. Who's going to pay for the parson? In those days, most of the parsons were still white men over black churches. Now, I raise that because what both of my elders address is this whole question that Dr. Jeffries enlightened us on years ago, socialization. Who's in charge of living your values, your interests, and your principles? And then we have to come back to the institutions that was established after slavery. The church, the school, and advanced the school to what we call the traditional black college. I don't think more than one was established by black people. And I don't think any, except maybe one, teachers have a black studies department, or even make any significant effort to teach black people about black people. And yet they control the socialization of the primary group of intellectuals, elite and professionals that then serve us to continue the socialization of the black community. And so I think we need to really take a serious look at the institutions within our community that socialize our children. The schools, and we have a tendency to say, they school. No, that's your school. Your tax money took out of your paycheck, paid for those people at that school. And you're treated like an alien and an invader if you come to that school. You have to turn that around. And you have to readdress that school. The churches in our community, I'm not going to be hard on anybody's religion because that would be kind of painful, and I am hard. But if they're going to exist as institutions of religion, then we who go to them have to make a demand that they reflect our aesthetics and our imagery. Now, if you can't have your God look like you can't win any kind of revolution. Forget it, the game's over. And secondly, we need to trace the roots of Christianity really back to Africa where it belongs. And I think if we do that, the aesthetic transformation will be a little easier to convince others of. Because right now, in the base of our mind, we accept Christianity as a European model. And even when we want to see black imagery, we still don't understand that the church in Ethiopia and Egypt is older than any of the churches in Europe. And that if you look at the design of those churches and even the belief system in those churches as regards Christ, it differs fundamentally from the church we now follow. And many of us did come to this country. If we study our history, we were already Christians when we got here, when they captured us. Many of us were. As many were Muslim when they captured us. And many, many more were of our traditional religion. I think religion is one of the most important things that must be addressed. Because if you cannot see God in the mirror that you look in, you cannot liberate yourself from the God of whoever image you're looking at. You understand what I'm saying? If you look in that mirror and you're seeing a white man as God, and that's the ultimate of all power, you cannot liberate yourself from that. You can't liberate yourself from God. But if you look in that mirror and you can see yourself. So I'm saying that's the school is the outlet. Our children go to these schools. They take from 35 to 45% of our tax money every payday. And we pay the aliens to come into our community. And we expect that won't happen. And it's gotten even worse. The black supremacist white base that's working in our schools will not educate our children unless we put certain demands on the school. And we can't do that unless we have a presence in schools. So those are the two main things in terms of the socialization I think we've got to get to. Because you can't move anywhere past the school or the churches and think you can have a move. It's not going to happen.
Now, we have 8 questions. And being the elder of the elders, I'll be 89 in a month. So,
Let's acknowledge that.
So we're asking the elders to shorten your replies to the questions to no more than 3 or 4 minutes, because at the end you'll be able to make your summary speech. All of us up here are speakers, we speak. And don't give us a microphone for the Lord's sake. But I just want to say this in my 3 or 4 minutes. It happens that in Philadelphia, the only school district in the country that has an infused curriculum starting in kindergarten, and children cannot graduate from high school unless they pass my course in African infused history. Only school district.
Let's acknowledge that.
The problem the children are going to have when they learn that our fathers and mothers gave reading and writing to the world 6,000 years before the Europeans had its first book. And when they come home, since the adults don't know it, they're not going to be reinforced like white kids are reinforced when they go home and tell their parents about the greatness of Europeans. You follow what I'm saying? Since the adults don't know that our father, Ahmed, gave algebra to the world 3,700 years ago, and his book is in the British Museum, and I have copies of the pages of the book where algebra was first promulgated by him. When the children are learning this, it's not reinforced at home because you all don't know to reinforce your children. So there is something that you have to do. And this is why we're so happy to have the authors here, Dr. Jeffries and Dr. Battle and Dr. Calvin Robinson. We have the book that you should get yourself together so that you can reinforce what these children of yours are going to be learning in the school district of Philadelphia. Does that sound harsh? No. Does that sound like it's true? It sounds African. It sounds African. How many of you know that we gave 16,000 inventions in the United States? How many of you know that our fathers won the Civil War? This is what your children will be learning. Because I made sure that that's in the books. That we infuse. By infuse mean that on page, it's not a separate book. On page 1 it's something about white folks, on page 2 it's something about us. On page 3 it's something about white folks, on page 4 it's something about us. That's how I infused the history from kindergarten to high school and science from kindergarten to high school. Finished it in 05. I was only 87 then. Just a kid. My point is, do you feel that you have an obligation to learn this so you can reinforce what your children will learn? Do you think so? But we have DVDs and we have CDs and we have books by Brother Jeffries and Calvin Robinson and Brother Battles. Is it too much to ask you to learn so that you can reinforce what your children are going to be learning? I'm only asking to live to be 100 because that's when the first children who are now in kindergarten will graduate. And I want to be here because they're going to be different human beings than you and I are. The next question is, the majority of our higher learning institutions which appear to have a black face are white because they only have a curriculum that serves others outside of Philadelphia and not themselves. Is this because the students don't know and the faculty does not know, or is it because these learning institutions have only learned to cipher energy from its siphon, like I said, siphon energy from its cultural base with no return? You all know what an umbilical cord is. If you go up on the internet and look up what the purpose, what happens to the infant in the mother's womb if the umbilical cord is damaged, it damages their brain. Well, our cultural umbilical cord has been damaged. You follow what I'm saying? Deliberately damaged. Any of the other brothers want to speak on that subject?
There has been many books on that subject, and one also I think you should have in your library at home, and that's Miseducation of the Negro. Another book, The Matters of Color. You should have these books, understand the laws and everything else. In the book, Miseducation of the Negro, you have those that have gone through higher learning or sold them in a use to the race. So that means that, as what has been said here, not only you just look at it being entertaining, but to internalize it, unless it becomes part of your psyche and of your thinking within your mind, you can't make a change. So it's up to us to get this information. One of the things that Brother Anson's working with, and we're on it, and the Honorable Marcus Garvey made mention of it back in the 20s, which he established drama clubs. We have to dramatize information.
Right.
We have to put it in pictures. Pictures is worth 1,000 words. We have to begin to write different plays that begin to attack our conscious mind, subconscious mind. But one of the things that we've been running through is one just come out here about 3 months ago or 4 months ago. Medina go to jail. Nothing but junk. We have to change that.
Thank you. Any other brothers want to speak on that subject? Anybody from the audience wants to respond to anything the elders have said so far? We've been kind of rough on you by saying, look, get yourself together mentally and knowledgeably so that you at least be up with your kids. That's what we're asking. Somebody can respond to that from the audience, and the elders will be glad to hear it. Brother Jeffries, make any response?
Well, a short comment that I'd like to make is affirming what we've experienced in terms, as I mentioned, describing our circumstance, analyzing it, and prescribing. We don't have African institutions of higher education. We at best have Negro achieving institutions of higher education. And that's the best thing, from Howard through Morehouse and Spelman, on down to Hampton and the rest, Lincoln included. So we really need to have a serious analysis of what type of education are we laying down for our youngsters. You have a choice from K through 12 on to higher education of dealing with an education for dependency or an education for liberation.
Thank you.
We have not made a decision to have institutionalized in our communities education for liberation. We have education for dependency. We're going to have various processes, meetings, decisions made to put in place an education for liberation.
May I say it just another way, Brother Jeffries? We send our kids to school for them to become personally successful. And that's what the school are teaching. For Johnny, for you to grow up and be able to make a lot of money and buy a home and a car. Personally, there is no education in place to make them go to school to learn for the liberation of their people. That's why we're miseducated. I have all kinds of degrees, so does Brother Jeffries. I've just been miseducated, and I'm just so happy that our ancestors rescued me from oblivion and taught me their greatness. But let me tell you this one thing that's so exciting to me. Our fathers and mothers so smart in Shanghai. Shanghai is the name of the empire from which our fathers and mothers were born. An empire larger than all of Europe, made up of university cities and rolling farmlands. And when the Europeans and the Islamic groups invaded in March of 1591, our mothers and fathers did something that you will cry. Some of us cried when we found out about it. What they did, they went to the universities, the University of St. Croix and Timbuktu, the University of Janet, and got all the books and the legal documents and the medical treatises and buried them, hoping that one day their children would find them so that they would know that they were brilliant and literate. We've just started finding them. In 1997, 98, 99, last year, we've uncovered tens of thousands of books our mothers and fathers have buried, attesting to their huge literacy, their brilliance, the legal treatises, the beautiful handwriting. If you get the December issue of Smithsonian, you will find what I'm talking about. December 06 issue of the Smithsonian magazine, you will see how brilliant your mothers and fathers were. 300, 400 years ago, very hoping that one day their children would dig them up and find out the greatness, brilliance of their ancestors. West Africa. Any questions from the audience? Any of the elders want to say anything for the second question?
The question from the audience.
Yes?
Not so much a question as a comment.
I can't hear you.
Can you stand, please?
Stand and be...
Not so much a question, but a comment. Most of our churches or religious organizations have Bible study or whatever it is that we study. Why don't they do studies on the literature that's coming out about our history? Why can't we have, why don't they do a day of your own heritage study instead of just the Bible per se or whatever your religion might be? For instance, you mentioned the miseducation of the Negro. That's an excellent book to start. The Journey to Soul-Like People. I mean, if you had groups of people, you can discuss it, because you're right. Children are going to come home and we're not going to have a clue, those of us who don't read.
I got to give an answer to that question, but I've been talking about. Some of you want to give an answer to that question. I can give it. I know the answer to the question because we tried it. Anybody like to answer the sister? Why don't our churches, here's what she was asking, why don't our churches teach the adults and children the greatness of our African history?
I would say,
I don't want to say it.
just like, and I hate to point to this church, here about 2 years ago, they introduced to this church a Black Madonna. In fact, it was put in this room here. But the minister or the father that was over the church, because of the whites who financed the church, he thought it would offend them. Most of our ministers find it offensive to white folks, just like we find it offensive if we go to a black store. We don't spend our money. Or we go to the Asian store. We have the Asian mind. See, we have to go right back to our minds and how we think. We have to clean that up. So the same thing with the churches. If they don't clean up how they think and the thoughts that they're thinking and the condition of the people, the welfare of their people, it remains the same. We have to have a way of reaching it.
Let me ask you this question now. This will help out. How many of you in here right now could teach a course in African history at your church? Raise your hand. 2 people. 3 people. To teach a course in African, not African American. I ain't talking about George Washington, Booker T. Washington, Marion Anderson. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about Sunni Ali Beard. I'm talking about Imhotep. I'm talking about Amenhotep III. The question is, how many of you could teach a course in your church?
Capable or allowed?
Capable. Not allowed. Capable. 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 How many are you capable? Now, here's the reason, but one. Out of 50 African-centered people. Now let's go out in the street on Columbia Avenue, on Diamond Street, and gather 5,000 people who are not African-centered. How many of them? Here's the reason why we don't have it in our churches. We tried it in the 60s. Brother Barrett, Calvin, out of this church, we went to the churches and said, we'd like to establish in your churches learning centers. We went to church after church after church, but we were only about 10 of us and about 1,000 churches. Who can teach it? I asked this group right here, who's African-centered, who can teach a course in African history? We don't have it. See, it's different in the Jewish faith. All Jewish adults know their Jewish history. Any of them can teach it. But because of historical, not because you're not bright, not at all. It was cut off of your cultural base to learn about your African ancestors. And that's why you can't teach it in your church. That's why ministers don't know it. They don't know it. So who's going to teach it? That's it. But that's the answer to your, it's a long answer, I'm sorry, it's so long. But that's absolutely correct. Any other questions from the audience? For the seasoned soldier, the third question is for the seasoned soldier. Has white supremacy so eroded them, and the seasoned black soldier, that's what this meant. Has white supremacy so eroded them that they are corrupt or break or impede the function of new young warriors? Have they only become fastened with the illusion of money? That's a question. Any of the brothers want to answer that?
I want to respond to the first question. The second part is I don't understand it as well. The first part was the seasoned soldier has white supremacy so eroded them that they corrupt or break or impede the function of our new young warriors. I don't know if that's the exact motive, but there certainly exists. Classic example. When the new Black Panther Party started, the Black Panther Party elders who had really not functioned for a couple of decades became an antagonist force towards the new Black Panther Party instead of a complementary informing force.
Right.
And I've watched that same thing in the Freemasonic halls. I've watched the same thing in the church. We have not put in place a way to pass the scepter to the next generation in those institutions we do have. And so I think we can safely say white supremacy has eroded us in terms of the style of leadership and the motive for us who are in leadership, so that we don't learn to pass that wisdom on or recognize those who pick up the scepter and give them assistance.
Good. Now here's the fourth question.
Before you run to the fourth question, there's some of us that's still on the third question.
Okay.
Picking up on what Brother Small mentioned, and of course I noticed the same process, but I noticed it even throughout our culture, not just for the new Black Panther Party. There's an intergenerational problem. The transfer of knowledge, wisdom, understanding between the generations has not properly taken place. It has never been allowed to flower once the European got control of our development. So our key is to return to an African formula of control of the socialization process from before the womb till after the tomb. When you have complete control of the socialization process, you have a circle that's complete in which you're transmitting values.
Dr. Jeffries, would you please explain the word socialization to
Right. Brother Smalls explained it, but I don't know why he's so soft in his speech today, he had some problems.
I got all the elders. I got
weeks with his
I'm the youngest.
But he mentioned socialization.
Yeah, socialization.
Socialization is the key. Socialization determines how you develop your beliefs, your role models, your values, your patterns of behavior, how you become who and what you are. Africans mastered the genius of creating a society that worked together and appreciate each other by control of the socialization from before the womb. In other words, before the young woman has child, she's being trained and understanding. Before the young man has relationships with the young woman, he's being trained. So they know that when they connect, it has a meaningful purpose that's a part of the complete socialization. And when they have children, that child is not the product of a notch on your belt that you had another woman. That child is a continuation of this enormous of humanity that's related to the cosmic understanding of the Great Spirit. And so you've been instilled with values that have a reverence for life and not this predatory value system of conquest. We've got to change that whole process. And so when we're talking about a council of elders, that's a continuation of the birth through the training of the youth, through the young warrior stage, through the training and how you control and lead life, and through the eldership. And then when you are a revered elder and pass on, you have an ancestor who's acknowledged. So I think we need to go back to the control of the socialization process that African peoples laid down, which is the key to culture, high culture and civilization.
Thank you, God. Any questions? Yes, sir. Yes, John Brown.
Yeah, Brother Brown, Ford from ASCAT. It's just a comment. As a part of the socialization process, particularly in motherland, we had an age-grade system in which those a little older than the ones below taught the ones below them, and each grade taught the youth right below them. There was great respect for the 5 and 6 had a great respect for the 7 and 8. The 7 and 8 had a great respect for the 9 and 10. 10, etc. Of course, we had respect for our elders, we had respect for our mothers, and queen mothers, etc. We've lost that. We had to rebuild that kind of thing. That's a part of going back and looking at your history, looking at your culture, looking how you did it. That's how we did it. So that's one of the ways that we get back to our socialization.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. Okay, anybody else say anything? And let's go to the fourth question. It says this, I like to reword it. Are we a people so subtle, systemized, that the brutality and genocide committed to and on us goes unnoticed? Putting it another way, in Philadelphia last year, 407 people were murdered. Of that 407, 390 were black, murdering other blacks. Does this happen? This question is saying, does that happen so much that we become jaded, that we become so used to it that we don't pay any mind? That's what this question is. If we do pay mind, then what have you done about it? You individually. What have you done? Have you raised some kind of question? Have you formed some kind of a group? We kill each other at a rate of one black murdering another black person every 69 minutes. Since we've been here, somewhere in the United States, a black person has murdered another black person. 2 of them, 2 so far. We've been here a couple hours. What have you done? You didn't come here today to be jolly or to be entertaining. You came here today to get the thinking cap. What am I doing? What am I doing to educate my children? What am I doing to further Africanization of people. What am I doing? You can't answer it. If you say nothing, I'm going to leave that up to George. I'm going to leave it up to Brother Jeffries. I'm going to leave it up to Brother Small to battle. 42 years, our ancient Kemetic fathers had to go to school 42 years. The purpose of their schooling was to raise the race. That's the whole purpose of the Kemetic schooling. Not to be able to buy a bigger car or bigger house, but to raise the quality of life of Africans. That's the purpose of education. Education means to bring from within your brilliance. That's what education means. So, what have you done? Anybody care to? Yeah. What? Yes, sir.
I lost a grandson 2 years ago. Just in Pittsburgh. Visited a young fellow in Northeast who was shot 7 times. What I've been doing is supporting my daughter-in-law and son. My son belongs to the group called Concerned Black Men. My daughter-in-law is in England now, addressing the same problem. She's in Liverpool. And last Thursday, she's giving a presentation in Manchester. My wife and I have been involved in the school system, both the public and the independent black private school. Trying to...
What is your name, sir?
Sprague. Yes, I know both.
Yes, sir. Let's give him a hand. Yes, sir.
Elders, I'd like to address a bit of a dilemma, because as you say, we need to be of action. But I believe a lot of people who are sincere and want to do some serious work, they try to get involved in groups. And what it boils down to is a lot of hustlers, a lot of cultural pimps, a lot of people who just mislead and abuse the sincere efforts of people. And after a while, people get very jaded or they get very suspect, and sometimes they just rather they can do bad by themselves. And another aspect of it that's even more damaging is that when your children observe you going from one African-centered action group to another, and the efforts are always compromised by the hierarchy or the ones in charge, sabotage, it leaves an indelible impression that we can't do anything. And even if you do believe, and even if it's not going to be accomplished in your lifetime, when you try to reach back to your young and say, stay with it, you got to take it further, and you see them shaking their heads like, no, this ain't working. Every time we go to another group, something happens. And you try to build the credibility, but they see with their own eyes the contradictions. What can we do about this?
Well, have you heard of the group of Concerned Black Men?
Yes, sir.
They have been operating beautifully for years and years and years. There are at least 4 groups that have proven, time-honored, that they are ones to be trusted. And I agree with you, there are a lot that should not be trusted. But there are some persons, there are some groups that have proven themselves. Getting part of the Dessert Club, where we have taken over 2,000 children to the motherland free of charge. They're groups, they're all groups. I wrote the curriculum for them. They had to pass the curriculum, a 2-year curriculum, in order to qualify to go. So there are groups, and I'm not doubting what you're saying. And I believe that you work at the Youth Study Center, is that true?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I've heard about you. And you're a wonderful young man. And I'm sorry that you're jaded at this point and run into people who are jaded. I wish you would come to us.
Well, it's not so much
that I'm jaded because even though I'm highly frustrated, my commitment is to continue to fight until I have no more breath. But what gives me a bad feeling is when I look to my children and promote to them to continue this as I am here and when I'm gone, and I look at the contradictions that they've seen and they don't believe because they haven't seen the unity that we preach but we don't live.
And then go to Black Men United, allow Kaiser. In other words, a number of groups.
Also has been dealing with this and raising his children and many other children for many years. He's mastered how you deal with this self-hate, this self-denial, and he's also come up with a concept of PSTS, post-slavery trauma syndrome, that he's laid out in a very serious way. And so I know he's got some comments he was prepared to make, but I'm trying to set the stage for him to make some other than that now.
Because of the contradiction that we are fighting. If our people knew which way to go or how to lead, then we could all be home with our wives and our husbands. It is those very contradictions you cite which is the reason for perseverance. The second piece to that was family. Out of our tradition is the foundation for civilization. We must start understanding that the family is an organization. And I will guarantee any of us sitting in this room, if we look at our nuclear and extended family, we're talking about more than 1,000 persons that we know and can get access to. If we were just to organize our families around the critical issues, we would go a long way to organizing the race.
A jet plane and fly out of here. But I do not let that deter me from what I swore to do. And I keep doing it, and I have been doing it, even from the time we were talking about young men going in the Army. 1941, Brother Calvin and about 16 of us took the oath not to go into the Army. I spent 5 years in a federal institution because of my belief. You have to establish within yourself certain principles, just like our fathers did back in Egypt, and Ethiopia, and things like that. We have to have principles for the things we believe. Therefore, if my wife, sister, brother, whoever left, it didn't deter me from carrying on. We have to have that type of determination within ourselves. So all I have experienced from the time I started in this type of work, when I was 17 years old, last month I was 87, running behind my brother here, Dr. Robinson. It hasn't deterred us to go any other way, but keep on moving. We had classes throughout the city, Delaware, New York, and different places that we have teaching the journey of the Shanghai Empire and all those different places. I've seen people swore that they would be with us and carry on what we were trying to do. But guess what? It didn't last long. They didn't internalize this information and the principles that we were trying to teach.
Thank you, President.
I'm listening to everybody, and everybody has said a lot of very good things. But I know you're wondering, what shall we do? Now, Brother Ed had made mention, but we figured out a method, and I mentioned this in the beginning of my little speech at the beginning, that a shortcut, and it's not really a shortcut, but I'll use that terminology to go over these things that we call obstacles. Shortcut to that would be something that what Brother Ed, mainly, and Brother Ari, and all of us who see what our people gravitate to more than anything else. And that is, and I say it again, I want to get it in, the movies, motion pictures, Brother Battle mentioned it. Motion pictures Why? Because a picture is worth 1,000 words.
One picture.
One picture is worth 1,000 words. And since we have been so programmed to worship motion pictures, white folks especially in those pictures, but it can work for us if we have the right people directing the picture and the story line behind it to let us get into that subconscious. See, the subconscious mind has got to record that in order for it to work, like I said, that's what it will do. The subconscious mind, with the pictures which they show us, make us do all these crazy things. To a case in point, I'm going to close on that. China, the country of China, wanted to get favorite status to work with the United States in sales, buying things from China. But in order for them to get that status, the United States said you have to buy our motion pictures, you have to sell our motion pictures to your people. You got to. China said no. Hey, what's a motion picture? It's got us where we are. Their pictures have got our minds so hooked up that we can't even trust each other for anything at all. As a lot of people, not people like us. So I just want you to understand that. So this is what Brother Ed is doing now, and others.
I've written 3 scripts, 3 motion picture scripts. We are working on a $25 billion production one right now. It's a program, it's called Medallion, and it's a story of our fathers and mothers in a beautiful city in West Africa called Timbuktu. And it starts with the coronation of one of our fathers. His name is Sunni Ali Beard, the beautiful white diamond. And it's a love story. But you see the homes our mothers and fathers lived in. You're going to see black people in the medical school.
No huts.
No huts, no bare feet. I'm sorry to say this, brother drummers, but no drums. We gave to the world the piano, violin, clarinet. We gave the flute, the harp, the zither, the bagpipe. And these orchestras were made up of them. The drums were introduced by the colonial people. They're trying to say that we were primitive people and only could hit a drum. We had a drum here and there, but it wasn't the drum. But anyhow, that's
What's the name of the work?
Medallion. The Medallion.
The Medallion.
Yeah, that's the first motion picture. The second was called The Star People, the story about the Donuts. But what I'm saying to you is this. In order for you to feel good about yourself, it has to be subconscious. A great psychologist traced 100 murders of blacks by black. 100 murders committed by a black man against another black person against a black person. And in each one, in each murder, Dr. Alvin Toussaint found that the murderer uttered a negative epithet as he struck the knife or pulled the trigger. You black SOB, or you liver lip SOB, or you nappy head SOB. It was always a negative, physical, degrading term that they use when they get. You can't imagine a white person stabbing another white person and said, you thin-lipped white SOB, or you straight-haired, because those terms in our minds are positive. You don't turn around 3 times with a white cat across your path. You don't call a white cake devil's food cake. We're programmed against ourselves, programmed against our looks, against our nose. Why do you think? Look at my nose. to you is ugly. But to Napoleon, when he saw my nose on the Sphinx, that symbol of power, he shot it off, had his men take their guns and train those grenades on that nose, because it's a symbol of power. We've been programmed that this kind of nose that makes you speak with a nasal tone. You said that's a pretty nose that when you have your babies and they've got a little thin nose. She got a pretty thin nose. I know, but she's gonna be nasal when she talks. Oh, isn't she a pretty color? She's high yellow. She's high yellow. So that's a pretty color. Not knowing that that's a form of a disease called albinism. This color. You're albino. Our hair is the only hair on the planet that does not allow headlights. Most beautiful hair on the planet. And our children are raised as ugly. And the only way that's going to be changed is not through speech. Yeah, look, I could speak continuously for 4 years to groups like this. I never reach everybody. But with a motion picture, I can reach millions. And it's not going to be a negative thing against white. It's going to be through a powerful, powerful law called paired associate learning. When you associate what you want as beautiful with positive things, then that thing becomes beautiful. So black skin will become beautiful. Majestic features. You got to change your language. There's no such thing as big lips and big nose. They're majestic features. Our hair is evolved hair. It's not a dark. He's not dark. He's richly pigmented. He's not light or fair. He's poorly pigmented.
Lightly melanized.
Poorly melanized. It's going to be a negative thing.
He's poorly pigmented.
He's poorly. Stand up, Ron. Stand
But that's pigment melanin. Neuromelanin, which is what inside, he's heavily melanized. I know the brother.
Richly. Rich and poor. Rich. You see, so after a while, see, in my family, I have 19 grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-great-children. And that's the kind of language we use. And you can imagine all different colors. And the rich ones, you know, they're the bosses. The poorly pigmented ones can't go out in the sun, you get all sunburned, you get all messed up. And the straight-haired ones, you gotta keep kerosene in their head so they won't get the headlights. We have a cousin, she had to wash her hair in kerosene. She had this long straight hair that had bugs in it. Straight hair had bugs. After a while, it stopped looking pretty.
Well, let me just kind of add a little comment. This was a very good interjection by the brothers, and including Brother Small. And trying to get this message across to my students. And I'm one that fully understands what they're talking about in terms of images, because when I raised the question of images in the Albany speech around Hollywood, that was one of the devastating blows to the system of white supremacy. Whoever controls the images controls the self-esteem, the self-respect, and the self-development. Whoever controls the images controls the self-esteem, what you think about yourself, the self-respect, how you feel about yourself and others that look like you, and your self-development. We are caught up because of negative imaging in a process of retarded development and negative development. So we've got to change the images, and that's what the brothers are talking about. Hollywood understood that, so there's a science of negative imaging, and that goes to the root of our negative socialization process. We have a self-hate that's deep, and it comes out of the dehumanization of slavery and the post-slavery trauma that we still continue to carry. So it's not surprising that we kill each other. Whoever controls the history controls the vision. We can't have a vision of ourselves as the chosen people who laid the foundations for culture and civilization, laid the foundations for humanity itself, because we don't control our history. We have his story, and most of you are well aware of that. Whoever controls the vision also controls the mission. We can't develop a sense of mission and purpose based upon African values to our people because someone else has programmed us into self-destruction.
Thank you, brother. Self-esteem, and I'm going to, your name, to speak, I just want to say this. You can't have self-esteem unless you have race esteem.
Okay. Like that.
If you can't have race, if you don't have race esteem, you can't have permanent self-esteem. For an instant, yes. Yes, brother. You have something you want to say?
Yeah, I do. I want to address the issue of the black on black crime.
Will you introduce yourself?
My name is Howard Pindell.
Howard Pindell?
Howard Pindell, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I've lived in Philadelphia all my life. I've been following these murders. I got these articles out of the paper every day. And I think that we got an okey-doke here. Like an okey-doke. Last year, okay, all we saw on TV was black men shooting each other, children getting killed. We all remember that.
Right.
You live in this city. Every other day, children were getting shot at, okay? If you look at the articles now, the black men have gotten so smart and so sophisticated that there are no suspects and there are no motives, okay? Every time you look at one of these murders, there's no suspects and there's no motives. Personally, I believe there's a serial killer that comes out at night and he's just killing black people, okay? Now, that's the reason there's no suspects and no motives. This person may have a silencer, it may be a police officer, but if you read these articles, these people are being shot in the back of the head. So they don't even see it coming. And when I sit around in social groups and I talk to other brothers and sisters, they don't seem to notice it. They all think that we're killing each other. But I believe out of maybe 400 murders last year, I bet 200 were a serial killer or something to that effect. And so we have to try to keep our children in the house, all right, solutions-wise, and we have to make ourselves aware that this is going on. I also spoke with a brother that works down at the morgue, okay? And he said the same thing that I did. He had the same theories that I had. So I just wanted to put that twist out there because this is where we're convinced that we're killing each other for one thing, which isn't, there are some black on black crime, but not to the extent that there's 400 people every year, okay? So that's the comment I'm going to make.
Did you express Mr. Sylvester Johnson? Express your theory to the police department head. Sylvester, he's looking for all kinds of answers to the question. Go down and talk to him. Let him put somebody on that. Sylvester Johnson.
He's a suspect.
He's a black man. Okay? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Pindell.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I hadn't thought about that, but this man could be exactly right, and I'm glad you advised me.
Could you speak into the mic, please? It's difficult for us to hear you back here.
I'm saying that this brother could be exactly correct. But I'm proud to be here with you, with these elders, and everything you've been talking about in terms of perception, in terms of image, it is critically correct, positive. And what I want to lift up is because I'm Minister Clemson Brown. I'm a Public Relations Director for Fapin Institute of Technology. That is, Professor Gabriel Evo is the most intelligent scientist on the planet today. He completed the work that Einstein and other luminaries were trying to complete, and that is the equation for the unified field theorem, which brings in an entirely new world, a new paradigm, because out of that equation comes the mathematics to do cold fusion, which means that you can literally run the city off of a cup of water. I'm on my way to Nigeria now, within the next week, because 20 million students in Nigeria wants to honor him, and they want to pressure the government to make their education, or make the foundation of their education, OFAPIT Institute of Technology, because they realize that the world has changed. Everybody else is acknowledging it, except African people. When you think of science, instead of thinking of Europeans like Einstein, you have to now see the most intelligent scientist as a black man in Africa. He's been honored by the African governments, the University of Göttingen of Germany, which is the home of Carl Friedrich Gauss, who is the all-time greatest European mathematician. They have honored his work. They have taken his work to celebrate their luminaries. But our people fight the hell out of me to even get an article in the paper. I've tried, I've been here, I've come down, I've shown films, everything. It just is mind-boggling that our people cannot have enough faith in themselves to believe that God has chosen them to lead humanity from this destruction into a new paradigm and a new world. It's very difficult to get him on the radio, to get coverage. I try to help him. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Gabriel O'Keefe. Gabriel O'Keefe. O-Y-I-E-O. Professor Jeffries knows it. Brother Smalls knows it. I showed a film, y'all were here the other week, where I showed our tour through the whole Nigerian educational system, where they brought out over 400 mathematicians, heads of their department, to inquire, to question them, they brought out the best they had. And when they finished, they said, well, this man has really solved the equation for the unified building, a new world. That's why the Nigerian government convened in their Senate. 100 senators passed the International African Foundation to award them, because they knew that they would never win a Nobel Prize, because that flips the world upside down. And you got to remove all your white icons and put up black ones. And white people ain't about to do that. So we talk about imagery, but when our children see that the smartest scientist on the planet is one of them, is African, and what that equation does is that equation mathematically proves that the African worldview and foundation, as you have said, is correct. Because what he did was to take the African worldview and mathematically prove it to be correct. Mathematically. So all of the things that you're teaching in terms of all of the knowledge that comes into the world comes through Africa. All of that is proven in that equation.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I would say, just a comment, Minister Clemson Brown was one of my students and one of my wife's students way back in the 70s.
Yes,
so we've seen it grow and develop. He probably has the best archives on the African experience over the last 25 years because he's gone everywhere with his camera. He's on a mission. He is seriously been involved with this great mind, this great spirit, and he's on a mission to try to open up his world to us, because there are certain key things there that would help make a great difference in what we're doing. So, but this was not the time. We've got to give him a special session at another justice to what the brother has done with just the
time. Yeah. Thank you very much, brother.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Give your name.
My name is Prof. Yuri. I'm honored to be here to hear you elders. Spirit pushed me to talk with you here. I am to add something. I had reservations about getting this, but it's just like if you go to church and get feelings, then you gotta get out the shower.
Get a little closer to the mic.
That mic's not on. That mic's not on.
Okay.
That's not
Here
on.
now.
A little better.
No, you just have to project more. The mic is really for the filming, for the camera, but
Yeah,
project more.
okay, I'll project. Okay, I'm sorry.
Very good.
So, okay, I just get out of my nervousness. First of all, I've been teaching at Temple University with a passive program going back to 78.
Repeat that again, please.
I've been teaching at Temple University, passive, studies education. Yeah, passive program. Going back to 78, okay? And I've been teaching the experience of the African American and also the native land in Africa. The brother, you had mentioned Dr. here,
Edward Robinson.
Dr. Robinson, okay?
Have you seen about Eddie G? Is that ugly white boy?
Yeah. And you had indicated that did anyone feel that they could teach the African, should I say African history at their church? I think you indicated about the church. I didn't say anything at that time because I'm not really associated with the church per se. So, I'd be a bad boy here. But at any rate, I feel I can stand my ground a little bit with that subject matter. I've been involved in specializing in conspiracies.
Specializing in
conspiracies. Conspiracies dealing with our nation, conspiracies dealing with world nations, conspiracies. I have given conferences in the city of Philadelphia. I travel around the country, and I do lecture around the country with different groups, different organizations, things of that nature. In reference to things that I have found out as fact. I've been blessed to know a lot of things. I feel that the things that we're talking about as far as what we black people have to do, and you're telling us something that we need to be listening to. But there are other aspects of this phenomenon that's dealing with our people and some other people as well. But I know that there's specific things that are done here to black people, not only in the United States, but in the world. I have been acquainted, involved in the intelligence community, the United States government. I have been in certain areas, of course, that I'm not allowed to talk too much on. Things, especially things that are taped. But I know a lot of things. And I know that many of the problems that we're having in our black community, as far as crimes that are going on in our black community, and the concentration of the media on these particular items, the previous person or two indicated that he thought there's some kind of manipulation that is going on. There is a significant amount of manipulation that is going on by way of technology that goes over 2, maybe 3,000 years ahead of the science community. Okay? So we talk about a phenomenon that's very sophisticated. It's going to take more work than just we people trying to do the best we can do. There is a significant conspiracy that's posed upon the community.
May I have permission from the elders to speak?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Brother George, Akhenaten Gordon.
Good name.
Yeah, well, the Akhenaten was presented to me or suggested to me by a sister at the temple, an Empress Sister Asha at the Temple of the Black Messiah here in Philadelphia, which I've been a member for, a few months now. I'm a member of ASCAT, a member of the Temple of the Black Messiah. I'm a member of the UNIA. I'm a member of NCOBRA. I'm not as active in all of those organizations that I would like to be, but I am a member and I'm very much part of the community. Also a drummer. I've been studying drum and djembe, especially, and I know that djembe does come from the west coast of Africa, Mali, Guinea, in that particular area, Guinea-Bissau. And I have seen pictures of the drum correct me if I'm wrong, on the temple walls from Kemet. And, but one of the things I would like to...
Also the violin and the harp.
Oh yes, most definitely. We have the kora, we have three string instruments, 21 string instruments. We are masters in all of the arts and all of the sciences. There's an underground economy also throughout the cities of this country. And that underground economy produces guns, doesn't produce them. It has guns and it has drugs. Right. So a lot of the murders that we don't know why they were committed and no one is being found to have committed them are being committed through this underground economy. One of the suggestions that I would like to present to the panel is probably nothing new. I also attend PASEP, which is the Pan-African Studies Community Education Program. And off and on I've attended classes there. They do have an excellent course, I haven't taken it, but on home repair, building.
And we're familiar with PASEP.
Absolutely. I know you are. And also, I thank you for all of the tremendous work that all of you have always done throughout our communities.
Thank you, sir.
Would the Council of Elders be willing to put their wonderful expertise behind calling for, people who are in the trades, for instance.
Who are in the...
People who are in the trades, carpenters, electricians.
In the trade?
In the trades, yes. In the building trades, for instance. Carpenters, electricians, plumbers. Those people that volunteer maybe some of their time to help some of these young people who are not getting that kind of skill. And maybe that's one of the ways to go. Also, maybe we could have young people that we could give expertise in photography.
My name is Sister Chikesha. I'm from New Jersey.
How are you?
Blessed to be in your presence. Blessed to be in your presence. I just wanted to ask a question based on what you were speaking about before. I work with parents and children. Years ago, when I was in college and I was working with children, I did an experiment. And I made a collage of magazine pictures, all different kinds of people. I was working with children that ranged from 7 to 13, and it was called What is Beautiful. And I had each one of the children individually